Have you ever stopped to think, why do we wonder? I mean, really ask, why? There was a time when the whole world was just explained by these incredible stories of gods and monsters. And then all of a sudden, something completely revolutionary happened. A fundamental shift in how we see everything. So let's take a trip back in time to the very moment humanity learned to ask a totally new and world-changing kind of question.
Okay, so take a question like this one. It's a question we can answer pretty easily today with, geology and plate tectonics, but for most of human history, the answer would have sounded, well, a whole lot different.
And this one simple question reveals two totally different ways of looking at the world. On one side, you've got mythos. An earthquake happens because some powerful being, a who, is responsible. Poseidon is angry, simple as that. But then, this new way of thinking came along, logos. And logos, it flips the script. It doesn't ask who, it asks what and how. What is the Earth made of? What natural process is actually happening here?
For most of human history, mythos was basically the default operating system. It gave the world meaning, it gave it context through these amazing stories passed down for generations. Thunder? Oh, that's just the wrath of Zeus. The seasons changing? That's because of the grief of Demeter. It's all about divine will.
Logos, on the other hand, wow, that was the radical break. It was this revolutionary idea that we could understand the world by, well, looking at the world itself, using our reason, using observation, using logic. It's the huge shift from storytelling to investigation.
So when and where did this incredible shift from mythos to logos actually happen? I mean, this wasn't just some small adjustment. This was the dawn of a completely new era in human thought.
For ages and ages, myth was king. But all that started to change around 600 BCE in this bustling Greek port city called Miletus. A handful of thinkers there started looking at the sky and the sea and the earth, and they began to ask those what and how questions. They became known as the Pre-Socratics.
These Pre-Socratics, they were the true pioneers of logos. They were the very first people, at least in the Western tradition, to even try to come up with a systematic, rational explanation of the entire universe.
What's just mind-blowing, really, is the sheer audacity of this idea. For us, it seems obvious, right? But just imagine being the first person to stand up and say, hey, maybe the world isn't some cosmic drama run by a bunch of moody gods. Maybe it's a system we can actually figure out. That was a truly revolutionary act.
So what kind of ideas were they cooking up? Well, you had Thales, who proposed that everything was made of water. Then his student, Anaximander, disagreed. He suggested it all came from an infinite, boundless substance he called the operon. Then you have Heraclitus, who saw constant change, this idea of flux as the fundamental rule of the universe. And of course, Pythagoras, who believed the entire universe was built on the logic of numbers and harmony. Now, were their answers right? Not really. But you know what? That's not even the point. The crucial thing is that they were all using reason to search for a natural cause. Okay, so this begs a massive question, right? Why Greece? Why did this explosion of rational thought happen in this one specific time and place? Well, it wasn't an accident. The conditions were absolutely perfect.
It turns out it was kind of a perfect storm. For one thing, geographically, Greece was a crossroads, constantly getting hit with new ideas from places like Egypt and Mesopotamia. Politically, its early forms of democracy actually encouraged public debate and questioning authority. On top of that, a thriving trade economy created a whole class of people with the leisure time to actually sit around and think. And believe it or not, even their language was particularly good for expressing complex, abstract ideas. It was the perfect incubator for philosophy to be born.
All right, so what does a bunch of ancient dudes in togas arguing about water and numbers have to do with your life today? Turns out, everything. This wasn't just some intellectual exercise. It left a permanent mark on the entire world. The great philosopher Plato, who came a little later, he just nailed the heart of this whole shift. It all starts with wonder, that feeling of looking at something familiar and suddenly seeing it as this profound mystery. That feeling, that is the engine of all knowledge. And that spirit, man, did it have consequences. That commitment to reason and evidence that started way back in Miletus, that's the direct ancestor of our scientific method. The focus on logic, that laid the groundwork for modern mathematics. And the practice of questioning authority and debating ideas, that is the very soul of democracy. And here's the cool part. We can all tap into this spirit. It's really a simple process. First, you encounter some common, ready-made explanation for something. But instead of just accepting it, you take a step back.
You let yourself feel that sense of wonder, that curiosity. Then you dare to ask the hard questions. Is this really true? What's the real story here? And just like that, you move from just assuming something to truly understanding it.
And this right here is the main takeaway for all of us. The battle between mythos and logos never ended. It's still going on. The Greeks challenged myths about angry gods. Our challenge today is to question the modern myths we see everywhere. The simple, easy, ready-made explanations we find in news headlines, on social media, and in our own cultural traditions.
So this journey, from myth to reason, from just accepting things to actually understanding them, that's our shared inheritance. It belongs to all of us. It's not just for philosophers in ivory towers. It's an invitation to all of us to participate, to keep that incredible spirit of wonder alive.
So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. What are the things we believe today simply because we've been told they're true? What are the modern stories we accept without even a second thought? The real legacy of those first philosophers isn't in their answers, but in their courage to ask the question. And that's a legacy every single one of us can carry forward.